What are some green flags in a relationship? When my husband left to go run an errand, he called me and said there's someone walking two super cute dogs down our road, so I left the garbage can on the curb so you would have an excuse to be outside and maybe you can have a chance to pet them. When my so and I were first dating, as in not dating at all but just playing with the idea, someone tried breaking into my apartment. It wasn't anything major, just hear them doing things to my door and trying to get in. They gave up pretty quickly, but I was a young girl alone at 4 AM and someone had just tried to get into my apartment. I tried calling a couple friends but no answer, so I was like, duck it, I need someone, and I called my then new beau. He answered immediately. It was 4 AM and he had to work the next day, but he answered immediately and he made no complaints. He just sat on the phone with me for an hour, helping me calm down. He even offered to come by. That willingness to be there for me, even though it was inconvenient for him, was a big contributor to my deciding to date him. When I was doing dishes after dinner, he came and stood next to me and picked up a dish towel and kept talking. I looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Drying dishes." In my 12 years of marriage, my ex had never dried a dish. I honestly had no idea what he was going to do. Had been on 2 dates with this gal and got really sick and had to cancel date 3. I was laying on my couch when I got a knock at the door. Homemade soup, tea, and red barks. She was really awesome. That can go 2 ways though. Either really awesome like your case, or super invasive in others. Gotta know your audience when you make a move like that. Good for her in your case. Sounds like she did it right. You don't feel relieved when they leave. Careful with this one though. Wanting to be truly alone does not mean the person you are with is someone you shouldn't have in your life. We need time to ourselves, even without our soulmates, and it's okay to desire that. I don't disagree with you overall, I just wanted to draw attention to some nuance. My husband falls asleep very quickly. I don't. One night in the early days of our relationship, he was asleep on his back, and I was awake on my side, facing towards him. All of a sudden he rests his elbow hard on my hip and puts his hand up with his palm facing out, like maybe he was waving hi to someone in a dream or something like that. But his elbow really hurt in my hip, so I had to wake him up to get him to stop. I asked, "Did you wave hello to someone in a dream?" "No," he replied, "I was airbending." The fact that he felt comfortable enough with me that early in our relationship to tell me he was airbending in a dream was a big green neon sign to me. The first time I went over to my wife's house, she started by warning me that her dog was adopted from a shelter and is usually pretty skittish or even aggressive around men for some reason. Dog was in my lap trying to lick me before the sentence was finished. I think that won me lots of points. When I met my boyfriend, one of the first times we hung out, we had to go somewhere. We stopped at the auto supply store to pick something up. He noticed an elderly man with a purple heart on his hat struggling to put oil in his car. Not even a second passed. He stepped up, told the man to take a seat in his car, put the oil in, and sat beside him, and spoke with him for about 10 minutes. The man then tried to offer money, but my future boyfriend told him he didn't want or need it, and the opportunity to speak with him was enough. He's always been very kind, gentle, polite, and respectful, never asking for anything in return. When you see people putting others first, it leaves a mark on who they are as a person. It's surely a green flag. He spoils me rotten, and does little things regularly to show he cares. Of course, I do the same in return. If they remember things you have said, or notice things about the way you act. Example, my current girlfriend got me some raspberry flavored dark chocolate candy for our first Valentine's Day together. That is my absolute favorite flavor combination when it comes to chocolate, like with the fancy chocolate or the Ghirardelli squares, or whatever, and it had come up maybe 2 or 3 times during our relationship up to that point, but she remembered it. Just being on the same wavelength in general. Making the same or similar jokes when talking, or having the exact same reaction to something you see, things like that. A giant one is also super obvious, but often ignored, knowing without a doubt that you'd still want to be their friend, even if things end for any reason at all. My current so really impressed me one of the first times we found ourselves in a mild conflict. It went something like this. Me, hey, you seem kind of upset about something. Is everything okay? To be honest, I'm a little annoyed with you, but I'm still trying to process it out in my mind before I feel comfortable talking about it. Can we check back in an hour or two? Me, oh, yeah, of course. I mean, thanks for being honest with me. Sure. I mean, it's not really fair for me to say I'm fine when I'm not, but I just need a little more space before we pick it up again. I shouldn't have to be amazed when adults communicate maturely, but compared to my past partners this exchange was so incredibly refreshing. It was just one green flag out of many, and whenever we argue, it's very respectful and focused on the issue or the action, and not the person. When you go to bed alone at night, and you miss lying down / sleeping next to them. To me this highlights that I can relax and be myself around them. Moreover, it also indicates that they don't stress me out. Sleeping next to someone who makes you feel comfortable and relaxed is one of the small keys to happiness. I was with a girl for 3 years. When we slept together she would wake me up every time my snoring woke her up. We eventually broke up, and I started dating my current girlfriend a few months after. Within the second week or so of dating she wanted me to sleep over. I was embarrassed because of how it was with my ex, so I warned her of my snoring. The next day she wanted to show me something she bought. Earplugs. That was my green flag. Effort even for little stupid things. When I met my wife I brought her a flower for our first real date. Hid it in my bag and surprised her with it. Without missing a beat she reached into her bag and presented me with the present too. Chapstick. Half-used chapstick. She had nothing and still went for it anyway. I like long-running gags and puns that lead into more puns, and on and on. My wife is horrible at this kind of thing, but she always tries, and it is always just the worst. Quite endearing. And don't discount joy. When I proposed I had to wait 5 minutes for an answer, because she couldn't talk. She just laughed and smiled and laughed and hugged and laughed and tried the ring on and laughed. That she would say yes was already a given, but when the time came it was such a surprise and a shock that she couldn't stop laughing. To this day, whenever things go better than expected she responds with joy that lasts for a very long time. It is such a pleasure to be around someone that is genuinely thankful, grateful, giving and loving. A few weeks ago I was nannying a girl and my boyfriend came over to help make dinner. While we were eating, she dropped her bowl and it shattered, so I freaked out and ran to the kitchen to get paper towels. Without even being asked, he cleaned up the shards of bowl and got her out of her chair and to the carpet so she wouldn't cut her bare feet and had her go upstairs to change clothes so the food wouldn't stain. I've never seen him take charge of a situation like that, and I found myself just watching him and thinking, this is amazing. He's so good under pressure, which I'm not. It proved to me that his caring isn't an act. It's him. Plus, he's gonna be a great dad. That much is pretty clear. When she takes you on a surprise date that she planned entirely. Seriously, in my past relationships, I've always planned the dates. Once I ask for my partner to plan a date, because I really don't want to plan 100th dates. She ends up clueless on what to do, and ends up being basic, while hoping I'd improvise on the actual date. Kind to animals. When I met my guy, a ladybug landed on his sweater, in freezing cold weather and he protected it. And then the bastard gave me his sweater, because I was freezing, and his sweater smelled really good. Not cologne, just a good clean smell. I was sunk 18 years later. He is just as kind and smells just as good. Open book. From our first date to today, he's honest and tells me a lot of things, even mistakes he's made. It told me early on that he was honest and humble. Also he says he's sorry when it's warranted. He has his flaws, like cleanliness, but his personality is amazing. They listen, like, really paying attention, because they are genuinely interested. Commenting on what you've said, maybe even tying it into other things you've said in the past. They bring up things you've said before, and ask the status of them now. They bring stuff to your attention that is specifically your interest, even if they don't share it. If something comes up and you have to cancel, they're understanding. If it's a once in a blue moon type thing, if someone's canceling every date you have, that should be a red flag for you, not them. Also taking you into consideration when buying major things. When we were like 6 months into dating, my so was buying new furniture for the living room and asked me a million questions about what I thought. I pointed out it was his money and his house, so it was up to him. He made it very clear it was basically something we would be living on for the next several years, so it mattered what I thought it should look like, and I should have just as much say as picking it out. I ended up getting to pick most of it out because my opinion was so important to him and he trusted my taste.